Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, in London, England, as well as Paris, France. And of course, you good old boys from Africa, you know we love that Big C tribe. We love you in Canada, but Big C, there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful June the 6th, 2018. Big C, how's it going for you good old boys down south?
Charlton, is going wonderful for us down here. You know, we want to pull a presidency. You know, if somebody cancels coming to the barbecue, we're going to tell everybody else to bring their kids in a band and, you know, we'll sit around and make it about us. Because I am still perplexed with that situation there yesterday, Charlton.
Yeah.
They had all these kids out on the White House lawn.
Yes.
Okay, so what did he do? Tell the staffers, look, call your spouse, bring your kids. Tell the band to bring their kids.
Yeah.
I need to make it look like people like me.
Yeah.
Okay? That's what I need to do. I need to have a band so I can lip sync the national anthem because I damn sure don't know the words to it.
Yeah, that's true.
Because I'm sitting there looking at it, and he was in a daze. He was throwing his head all back and forth. I thought that when you pay respect to the flag, in his words, is that you stand at attention.
Yes.
Okay? He looked like a 3-year-old when you're playing the Pledge of Allegiance in grammar school.
Yeah.
You know, or he had to go to the bathroom, one of the two. You know, he had to go take a tiki break.
You know, that's so funny.
You know, there he's waving around, looking all up in the air. I guess a couple of birds flew through the trees there in the Rose Garden at the White House.
Yeah.
So, you know, he was off kilter. But, you know, it's still, his base is saying that the Eagles are unpatriotic. Let's look at Kyle Long, Charlton, of the Philadelphia Eagles, who donated his entire salary last season to charitable causes.
That's right.
The only thing the president donated to charitable causes were 4 minutes of acting with a porn star. But that was it. That was his charitable donation, $130,000. Okay, nowhere near his salary. You know, we look at Colin Kaepernick, who has been ostracized by the NFL, who has donated $1 million, Charlton, to charitable causes.
Sure has.
For social injustice. And we look at the Philadelphia Eagles, who took a stance of unity. We talk about the city of brotherly love, Charlton. That's love as a unit, that you take a stance. And even come today, it was more profound, Charlton. The Eagle security staff had only set up 3 chairs in the Oval Office to meet with the president.
That's funny. I tell you, Big C, life is so funny. We got a lot of things to cover in the sports universe, and you know, NBA. POTUS has his own set of rules, and we have the NBA deciding if we're going to get past 4 games. If it's going to happen, it's going to have to start with tonight. The NHL, will they get past leaving Las Vegas again? What happens in Vegas? You know, what happens if Vegas stays in Vegas? Well, will the Capitals be able to stay in Vegas because they could wrap up Lloyd Stanley's Cup tomorrow? And then the College World Series want to congratulate the Florida State Seminoles for their winning their college women's national championship and baseball. And, of course, a lot of good things happening. And if people are going to report to the OTAs, does it really make a difference? The baseball power ratings, there's just a lot of stuff going on in the sports universe, and we love covering all of it. I do want to say this segment is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you. So, Big C, I know we talk about so many things in the world of sports and politics, and I just want to say again, you know, I still think about Dwight Clark and the catch, and you know, he's gone, and we all have gone through that with loved ones and friends and etc. We all know that's life, that's part of life. The tragedy in it, even more so, is not only is Dwight Clark gone, and we talk about who's not showing up for the OTAs. Candlestick Park was torn down a couple of years ago. And I think when it comes to things that stand the test of time, like the monuments, they should stand the test of time. Yosemite National Park, Yellowstone National Park, the Roman Colosseum, those monuments stand the test of time. The pyramids in Egypt, they stand the test of time. I know we still think about the passing of Dwight Clark. It's not just him, but that moment of the catch is etched in time, and a lot of people, they know where they were when the catch happened. But not only is he gone, Bill Walsh is gone, and Candlestick is gone. I just want you to get your thoughts on a little bit of what we miss when we tear down national monuments. Big C, your thoughts.
Well, Charlton, you got to look around the sports spectrum. The iconic stadiums of the past are gone that have meant so much in the history of establishing team dominance, Charlton, over the years when we look at sports. If we go back and think about some of the greatest games that were ever played,
yes.
The original Yankee stadiums where the Giants and the Colts played, as they say, the greatest game of all time.
Yeah.
It's gone. You think about Arrowhead Stadium, not Arrowhead Stadium, but Municipal Stadium in Kansas City, where the Chiefs played for their first Super Bowl, Charlton.
That's right.
And they played one of the greatest overtime games in history at that stadium against the Miami Dolphins. And the Dolphins, in the perfect season, won there.
Yep.
But, go back to Pittsburgh at Three Rivers Stadium, the Immaculate Reception with Franco Harris that propelled that organization to 4 Super Bowl championships, Charlton.
Yeah.
That's Franco and Terry Bradshaw and the Steel Curtain defense. That catch that may not have been a catch, Charlton.
Yeah.
And just like the following year when the Houston Oilers were there,
Yes.
and Mike Renfro caught a pass in the corner of the end zone. He got both feet down. This is pre-instant replay.
Yeah.
And they still called it an incompletion.
Wasn't his butt down too? His butt was down too, I think, in that play.
He got a little bit of everything down, though.
Yeah.
He got a little bit of everything down.
Yeah.
And there was a song that was made about that. And it was like, I got both feet down. I still couldn't get the point. The referees must have been smoking a joint.
Yeah.
But you go back to the catch in San Francisco. This was a stadium that had witnessed so much greatness, Charlton, over time. You got to realize it was the original home of the San Francisco Giants.
Yeah.
Prior to the San Francisco 49ers moving into that stadium. And at the time when they moved into that stadium, their quarterback was a great quarterback named John Brody.
Yes.
Out of the University of Stanford, who, did his entire collegiate and professional career right there in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
And a little known backup, there was a Heisman Trophy winner behind him named Steve Spurrier, who went on to be a great ball coach at the University of Florida and South Carolina.
That's right.
So when you think about the great players who played in that stadium, and Walsh's first year there in 79, started building his dynasty. When you look at Dwight Clark, he was the final pick of Bill Walsh's first inaugural draft with the San Francisco 49ers.
Out of Clemson, I believe.
He was the last player that he chose that season coming out of the University of Clemson. Not only that, when Dwight Clark got to the NFL, he already had an advantage over everybody else, Charlton.
What was that?
He was married to Miss America.
Oh, yeah.
Football was secondary to him. You think about it.
He'd been to the mountaintop. I've seen the promised land. Yeah.
The best part of his life was going home every day after work.
Yeah. So he wasn't.
People have talked about Tom Brady having a charmed life.
Right.
Dwight Clark was the original charmed life.
Well, yeah.
He was married to Miss America coming out of college. His wife at the time had been a student at the University of Clemson.
Yeah.
And they got married their senior year. But, to come to the 49ers, he was, known as a possession receiver.
Yeah.
But in college, he didn't catch anything. He caught 11 balls his senior year, Carlton.
Yes.
11 balls. Today's draft, you don't even get to be a free agent catching 11 passes.
Yeah, that's
but
true.
Bill Walsh saw something in this young man.
Yeah.
Is that he had discipline and dedication, that he was willing to play in an offense that he didn't get a lot of looks in.
That's a good point.
Now, the quarterback at that time, Homer Jordan, the following year they won the national championship at the University of Clemson.
Yes.
But, Dwight Clark was one of those guys that Bill Walsh recognized. he would do what was needed for the team to be successful. And so when he brought him into the 49ers as an unheralded last-round draft pick,
Yes.
he was a guy who knew he had to work hard, just like he did in college, to achieve what he wanted to obtain in pro football. Charlton, he reached that pinnacle.
Yeah.
Not only did he play for Bill Walsh, but he learned from Bill Walsh because he went on to become the general manager of the San Francisco 49ers.
Isn't that
Followed
something?
that by becoming the general manager of the Cleveland Browns. So you think about having a storied career as a player,
Yes.
winning multiple Super Bowl championships, Charlton, then going on and heading two professional football organizations.
Yes.
Dwight Clark was just a tremendous individual on and off the field and in the director's room, Charlton.
And I think when you mention that story and we ask people, who is your national monument? And we talk about things that are important, and oftentimes, you know, we lament people that are gone, and sometimes we take them for granted when they're here. For example, if Big C Sports wants to be about reaching out to the next generation, it's about reaching out to anybody that's looking for hope. And how can you find people that are going to be a little bit different? Our show's not like everybody else, and that's good, and whatever it is, it is. But when I ask young people, because I do a lot of the AAU, like, who's your national monument? And oftentimes people talk about a stadium. They think about a stadium like you just mentioned, you know, Candlestick Park. It could have been a treasure that could have been preserved. We think about the LA Coliseum. Hopefully they'll never tear it down like the Roman Coliseum, national monuments. So when we ask people that question, and I think about Dwight Clark, and there's still a lot of, you know, people, now they're starting to talk about the memories that he provided, like the catch. Where were you doing the catch? You know, where were you doing the immaculate, you know, reception in Pittsburgh with Franco Harris, and it was a Terry Bradshaw, Frank Fuqua, and a lot of Raiders swear that ball hit the ground. They swear that they ask where was the videotape and the replay of Franco Harris taking that ball off of the ground and running into the end zone. And I think Modell was going down the elevator shaft. But that was a national monument for Pittsburgh and that area, Three River Stadium. Now, the national monument for a lot of people are athletes. And I think, not that we worship anybody, but athletes have a reach. You can reach into the minds of young people, and you become their national monument, their citadel. So as I ask you, Big C, you know, what are the national monuments? Bill Walsh was a national monument. I think he was under the tutelage of the late Paul Bear Brown. I think Bill Walsh was one of his disciples. And I just want you to touch on that, because we always tell a young person, how do you get from where you are to where you want to be? Sometimes you follow the yellow brick road. Sometimes you follow the road that's paved for you. And as we reach out to all of our media brethren, what are we really leaving behind that a young person, boy and girl, can grab onto and say, where do I fit? So when I say, who's your national monument, Big C, expound on that, please, your thoughts.
Well, Charlton, having national monuments start at home. It's about a learned behavior of respect and
Yes.
appreciation. And that really comes, I know for me, came from my parents.
Yep.
You know, because without guidance and tutelage as a young male, Charlton, who knows what direction you'll go into?
Yeah.
We tend to follow sports now as a nation, as far as being a directive on how we look at things and, you know, expand the things.
Yeah.
And, you know, so many young people, Charlton, have lived their lives based on what athletes have done.
Yes.
Because you look on the streets now, you see the jerseys, not just by children, but by adults. You see the shoe companies naming shoes and apparel after players, Charlton.
Yeah.
Because they know how citizens will gravitate to that.
Yep.
And so it's so much of a focus. And when you parallel that to the crap that occurred yesterday at the White House,
Yes.
that you say, okay, I'm going to cancel an event that has become heritage at the White House.
Yep.
When you talk about monuments, the White House had become a monument with past
It
presidents,
used to be, yeah, you're right.
with championships. But those presidents, Charlton, had respect and class.
Yep.
They didn't attack the athletes. None of them had, Charlton. Regardless of what they had been going through in their lives, they didn't attack the athletes. They didn't use the athletes to catapult themselves and stimulate their base.
Yeah.
saying that I'm above you people. And that's basically what he said.
Yeah.
He said, if you guys don't want to come stand with me, I'll have my own ceremony.
Yep.
I'm a dictator. I'm a king. I can do as I want. If he was respecting, Charlton, the American flag and the monument of the presidency, Charlton.
Yes.
If you cancel an event, you cancel the event. You don't have your own personal pity party.
Yeah.
And that's what he did. He held a pity party, Charlton. He said, to his base, well, I feel pitiful for myself, so I'm going to bring in all the bands and let them play. I'm going to have people just show up.
Yes.
Now, you think about this, Charlton. You can't just show up at the White House like everybody. It's not like walking into a bus station, okay?
Right.
Where anybody can walk in. There's security clearance.
Yes.
So you have to look at what he did and see that it was orchestrated. He ordered everybody in from the government that he could.
Yeah.
That was available to have them stand and create a crowd for him.
Yeah.
For a photo op. Not a guy that's concentrating, Charlton, on crisis that we have going on in America.
No.
But he wanted a photo op of himself, and his base was elated with that.
Yeah.
Well, he can gather all these people together. Well, if you bring everybody in that works there, that's a lot of staff at the White House. Right there on, the mall right there in Washington.
Yes.
You can bring these people in. But to take that and try to take away the focus of what sports stood for, when you look at the Philadelphia Eagles and the slogan of that city, the city of brotherly love.
Brotherly love, yeah.
That these players, as a monument of that city's brotherly love stature,
yes,
okay, which is a monument for that city, that they stood together. It wasn't black and white. It was brotherly love of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Brotherly love. That's a very good
that
point.
Meant more than the backlash from some rude individual, using slander versus players.
I want to bring up something that, because you told me about this, and I haven't been there yet, but I'm going to go. I know the African American Museum, the symposium there in D.C., and how it just chronicles the history of a great people, African American society. And again, I tell people, Big C Sports, when we say who's your national monument, I want to be that show that tells people to Google it, because I want kids to learn, to don't trust what we say, trust what you can verify. And when I say Google it, I want you to give how you felt again when you went to that museum in Washington, D.C. I think John Lewis has a video plan when you go in there. But the reason I want to bring that up is because to be in Washington, D.C., and to deny the anathema that this country's had for people of color, it's almost like saying, what museum? He doesn't even know it exists. Because how could you not go in there and at least have some empathy for what African American families are saying? We want to stop this happening in the new form of Jim Crow, which is called the criminal justice system. Smart people know that, dumb people don't. But this is not a show for dumb people. So I want smart kids and kids who can Google to become smart and emboldened. Go back to how you feel when he calls black athletes SOBs, and you just left the museum in D.C. that chronicles the history of African Americans. Big C, your thoughts?
Charlton, any person who goes to the Museum of Natural African American History in Washington, D.C., which is visible from the White House.
It is. The
front of the White House, where they had the ceremony yesterday, the abbreviated ceremony to celebrate the so-called king of the White House.
Yeah.
It's visible from that porch on the front of the White House. People are so used to seeing the rear of the back house of the White House with those big pillars. It's actually where that oval porch is. That's the front of the White House, Charlton.
Yes.
And so you can see the Museum of National African American History from there. He took an abbreviated trip there, Charlton, because you need to spend an entire day minimum just to visualize the place.
Yes.
You need to spend a week to understand the place. He spent roughly 30 minutes there.
More than he spent with Stormy Daniels is what you're saying. He spent
he spent more time there with Stormy Daniels, but he spent a disrespectful 30 minutes at the museum, Charlton.
Yeah.
Because he would have been better served if he did not go.
Yeah.
Because you cannot observe not even one floor of this museum, Charlton, in 30 minutes.
Yes.
You cannot. It takes that long to get to the basement where you have to start. You have to go in and go to the basement and work your way up, Charlton.
Yeah.
He spent no time there, so he had no revere, no respect for that culture. So he doesn't have an understanding, Charlton. But when you walk into this museum as an African-American, Charlton,
yes,
you feel something.
Yeah.
Because of what you see, what you read. There's a presence there, Charlton, of souls from the past.
Yeah.
When you see our history that is laid out year after year, decade after decade, century after century, in this building, Charlton, the untold history of our culture in this country, Charlton.
Yes.
The hidden culture of us in this country, Charlton, that has been shackled by lies, Charlton, for decades and centuries in this country, Charlton. The atrocities that have occurred to our culture, Charlton. The genocide that was occurred to our culture. You got to understand, the world only looks at one genocide.
Yes.
And that's what Hitler did. The American people created two genocides, Charlton. Of the Native American Indians, that was a genocide. When you look at the Africans that were taken out of Africa, Charlton.
Yes.
Everyone says 6 million Jews during World War II. There was over 15 million Africans taken out of Africa, Charlton. Over 15 million.
Yeah.
And less than 1 million arrived in America. That's a genocide, Charlton.
You know, and I think about the African American athlete, and I'm so proud of our mainstream brethren, our white brothers and sisters that are now. It's just take a deep breath. And what Trump doesn't recognize, and he knows it's true, he can Google it, that all life came from the African continent. So that African American museum is not just about people of color. All life came from one source. Dr. Mendo and Gregor Leakey told us that. It all came from the African continent. And I just look at how athletes, and we said, I just had an epiphany. We say that sports will unite our country. Not politics, not religion. Sports will. And because most African Americans are well known in this country because of sports. Because that's made white populations billionaires, okay? You can Google that too. Since the integration of athletics, almost every owner's a billionaire now. Go back to pre-integration of sports, and you didn't have any white billionaires. There might be enough you can count on two or three fingers, but not everybody. Everybody's a billionaire that owns an NFL team, and predominantly basketball and baseball as well. But I got to bring this point up because to have him having such anathema for people of color, not the dumb guys. The dumb guy's going to go shake his hand. That's like the woman sexually assaulting, going to the guy that did his birthday party and pretending he didn't do it because for whatever dumb reason. But for that, in my understanding from my own grandparents, when you talk about what is your national monument, mine's my parents, my grandparents, hearing those stories of Jim Crow, family that some came from the South and came west to get away from that, and to hear how even one of my great-grandfathers on my mother's side was chased by a group of white men that were going to end his life had they caught him. But he got away, and because he got away, the Big C Sports Show is still here. Because if he was gone, then we wouldn't be here. That's about the blink of an eye. Does God help you? You got to know when you're being preyed upon. And I just want to commend those African Americans and my white brethren who are now not afraid. They won't stand in front, but they at least stand beside you. Okay, that's a start. But for them to know the history that's in that museum, and that the president has anathema against that, I'm glad they don't shut up and dribble. I'm glad they don't shut up and run the ball. So when we say, what is your national monument? For me, Big C, and for every young kid listening, grown people are set in their ways. But I want young black and white kids, no matter how tough life may be at times, to have your goals written down and pursue them. Don't worry about the people that tell you won't make it. They're going to be there asking you for something when you make it. It's the ones that tell you you can do it. And to know that when you look at that monument, I don't care what any person on TV says, black or white. As an African-American sportscaster, you cannot stand there on TV or sit there on TV or radio and not do something to give back to the young people following you. Because that museum shows you that you got there on the blood of a lot of people who were marginalized, who didn't have $100 million bank account, but they had something to call faith, the substance of things hoped for, evidence of things not seen. And it's that faith that will bring our society together, black and white. Dr. King and Billy Graham were angelic features. They were not perfect men, so don't give me that about what somebody did or did not do in their private lives. He who without sin he who without is it cast the first stone or moonshine? What do they cast if you haven't sinned, Big C? I know they throw something.
I don't know if they meant getting stone or what. It's something about a stone.
Okay, I know something about stones, but again, when I reach out to young people, I ask them, who's your monument? Because people are still pining over Dwight Clark, and many people never knew him. All they know was the catch, and he played for the 49ers. But they have monuments all over their lives that helped them grow up, that sent them to school, gave them food, shelter, and clothing. And I know the president has anathema for that. So it seems like every time he's attacking a black athlete, he's attacking a black mother and grandmother and grandfather who went through Jim Crow so we could have a chance to have a show. And that's why I don't have respect for some of the African-American men who get on TV and radio today and they don't even pay homage to that. It's like, I got mine, you get yours. I don't want to rock the boat, Thanks for the museum, and it shows the great sacrifice that people made, but I don't want to talk about it. This is not a political show.
Charles, and you touch on that. When we watch NFL games on television, okay?
Yeah.
Half of the analysts on these broadcasts are African American.
They sure are.
Okay?
Yep.
And a few play-by-play guys, Charles. The thing that bothers me the most is that none of them have backed the athletes.
Nope.
Especially the former players who are analysts, Charlton.
That's true.
When they see the guys of their fraternity that are standing there for a cause, Charlton.
To protect their kids.
To protect their children and their family, Charlton. And their culture. Because what did you do during that time? And every one of those analysts and broadcasters, Charlton, that are minority.
Yep.
They have a family member that has been affected by law enforcement.
Why don't they talk about it?
But they sit there because they've been put in this position to say, well, it didn't happen to me. It was only a family member.
Yeah, just my father and grandfather.
Even a brother, sister, uncle, or cousin, Charlton. Even a more recent family member. They've had something happen to them. But, and that's the bothersome point, Charlton. Because when you get the fans listening on television, and you won't get someone who has carnal knowledge of an incident, speaking out, saying what has occurred to them, bringing reality to this situation, Charlton, bringing a life incident into what they're talking about, that you can identify with what they're addressing.
Yep.
That's the reason why people are not affected by this when they look at television and they say it's a protest. Because the broadcasters of the event make it a protest by their lack of words or injection.
Yeah.
When we look at the president saying what he says about these players, Charlton, he has not come on one PGA event, Charlton, since he's been president, and so they're not standing for the national anthem.
He won't do it.
Or they playing the national anthem. Look, the last 4 tournaments we've seen here in the U.S., Charlton, we haven't seen the national anthem.
No.
We haven't seen golfers standing for the national anthem. Does the president or any other white citizen in America say anything about that? No. It's their right not to stand, so they don't stand.
Yep.
Why is it that a black sport, you have to stand to show your patriotism? For decades, blacks were not even allowed to fight for this country. They had to fight for this country, Charlton.
Yeah.
And to serve in the armed forces.
Segregated military.
And they have done it with dignity, Charlton.
Yeah.
Over the decades. Since the Civil War.
Yeah.
Blacks have served with dignity in this country and have not gotten any respect. You realize after the Civil War, Charlton, blacks are still being lynched by whites?
Yeah.
After World War I, Charlton, blacks were still being lynched by whites, okay? After World War II, blacks were still being lynched by whites in America.
Yeah.
Even as recently as the Korean War, Charlton,
Yeah.
blacks were still being lynched in America by whites, even though they had gone and fought for this country. Charlton, even before, let me go one more. Think about Vietnam.
Yes.
Even Vietnam, blacks were losing their lives in America after they came back
Well, you
at
know,
the hands of whites.
that's very powerful. I heard someone that I like listening to him sometimes, but he's just always angry, never laughs. And I heard him say something about the situation with Trump. And this again, the Washington, that beautiful African American museum in Washington D.C. We talk about who are your national monuments, not necessarily just people too, but sometimes people think about as a land structure like Yellowstone National Park, Yosemite National Park, the pyramids of Egypt. But what about people? And when I heard this guy that grandstands so much on TV, maybe someone must have talked to him and said, "Hey boy, you better stick to the score. Or you're going to be in the unemployment line too." So he comes on and he say, "I'm going to talk about Trump, but I'm not going to. That's not me. I'm not man enough to do it. Let me get a real man that can talk about it." He passed the torch to somebody else, like he is running the Olympics. Shame on him, because if you stand on the side of rightness. Remember, for those afraid black men that won't go to their producers and say, there's a fire in our neighborhoods, can we talk about how to put it out? No, boy, just focus on the score. When the civil rights movement was happening, there were people who fought that too. But that monument stands because people fought. And I'm going to just say this one more thing, because it's kind of painful when you can't find any brave people other than Big C Sports. And they'll do it for one day, or they'll do it for maybe 2 or 3 days, and that's it. But they've been trained to don't talk about it. But when he said, "I'm not qualified to talk about what's happened to the race of people that I come from," I mean, what an ignorant person. Google it then. Go to the museum. But he's on a sports show to just talk about who won the game and what's the score. How does that help the young black kid? I want to bring this up because when we say who's your monument, we want to respect law enforcement. And what Trump is doing is an anathema to black Americans. Mesa, Arizona, police department is outraged, to protect and serve the public. I know you want to watch the game, you want to see who's going to win the game tonight, but they had a video that was released of 5 officers beating up an unarmed black man, okay, that means didn't have any weapons, while he was talking on his cell phone. That sounds very familiar, Big C. And that same police department 2 years ago shot another unarmed father in a hotel hallway while on his hands and knees. And then Trump is still going to have anathema say shut up and dribble or get the blank out of this country in front of the National Museum for African Americans. And when you have someone who's paid very well to be on TV to even say, "Producer, would you mind if we talked about this so we can end it the same way we end sexual assault?" He says, "Well, I'm not qualified to talk about that. I'm an ignorant person. Just can get you the scores." Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, the atrocity that occurred in Mesa, Arizona for the second time in 2 years, the video clearly shows the man was leaning on a rail when the police officers showed up, talking on a cell phone. They told him to back up against the wall. He backed up against the wall. He stayed on his cell phone. And that's the right of a citizen to stay on his cell phone, to let other people know what's going on with you at that point.
Yeah.
The thing that the police did not realize is that there was a video camera at the apartment complex showing outside the elevator what was going on. 7 officers showed up. 5 of them attacked this man. They started punching him in the face, kicking him. They tackled him to the ground, punched him some more, hog-tied him, Charlton, tied his ankles together, tied his arms together behind his back. When they stood him up, they slammed his face into the elevator door with force. And now, if a white person hits a dog going down the street, they will stop. They will call 911, call animal shelter, call everyone they can to try to save this dog. Here was a man, just like the kid in Sacramento that was shot in his grandparents' backyard talking on a cell phone, beat up by the police, talking on a cell phone. They said it was a domestic violence call, the reason why they came, but he was just standing in the hallway.
Yeah.
He was doing nothing at the time. But he was attacked by the police officers and charged with disorderly conduct and resisting arrest. Even though he did nothing, he didn't throw a punch. Even when the police were punching him in the face, he didn't even raise his hands, Charlton.
No.
He just fell over. And then when he was hogtied, they took him, stood him up, slammed his face into the elevator door.
Yeah.
Now, this is eerie to the incident 2 years ago, Charlton, when there was a father in a hotel and the police had him come out of his room, told him to get down on his hands and knees and crawl, and told him if he made one false move, he's wearing his pajamas also, Charlton, let's make that clear. He was in his pajamas. If he made one false move, they would kill him. They told him that, even though he was following all of their rules.
Yep.
A police officer shot him several times with an AR-15 rifle. This police officer just a couple of weeks ago was acquitted of manslaughter for killing this father of two, Charlton.
Wow.
Who was listening to every command that the police, and telling the police officer, please don't shoot me, I don't want to die.
You know, Big
He
C,
said, well, I'm going to shoot you. And that's what he did.
well,
And got away with it, Charlton. So when we look at Arizona's law enforcement, you got to understand the president just pardoned Joe Arpaio, a sheriff,
yes.
down in Arizona a few months ago
Yeah.
for civil rights violations. So this is the modus operandi, Charlton, that culture, that country, Charlton, that down in Arizona,
Yeah.
is that you are willing to take the lives of people. You're willing to beat up people, Charlton, even if it's on camera, because you know that if you tell the lie of the story that occurred, Charlton, that's the first thing that's believed. They wrote this report on this young man that they beat up, Charlton. All of a sudden, this video comes out, and the police association is appalled down there saying, well, you can't release video without audio because you can't believe what your eyes are showing you. That's what they're telling the public.
Yeah.
Don't believe your damn eyes. He had to be saying something, okay?
Yeah.
Even though you see him talking on the phone, leaning up against the wall, with his back against the wall, not resisting, not moving, not trying to run, surrounded by several officers. Then all of a sudden they just start punching him in the face and in the stomach.
Yeah. And you know the shame
And
about
so-
that? You know the
but-
shame. Go ahead, C. Go ahead.
I don't know what audio is going to tell you different, because you have to understand the only thing that audio would show is the demeaning words that they were using against this young man
Yeah.
while they were punching him. It's not going to exonerate the police.
You know,
When you commit a criminal act, it's not about verbiage. It's about the physical action,
yes.
is what you do.
So,
We saw the physical action twice in the last 2 years in Mesa, Arizona from their police department. Oh, they're America's finest. And they say, I'm not saying that every police officer is a bad individual,
there's a lot of good ones.
but we keep seeing the bad individuals on video,
Yeah.
and they keep a job.
And the funny thing, it's not funny, the irony in that is we have that museum, we have Trump having an anathema for African Americans, and I'm proud of our white brethren for at least standing behind. You don't have to stand in front, just stand with or behind. But even when someone who is African American, who grandstands so much, like, let me tell you what this person is, I'm going to tell you, I'm the truth. I hear that garbage, but when it's time to say something that a man would say, like, how do you protect young black kids? Well, I'm not qualified to talk about that. You know, last time I got pulled over by law enforcement, I was in a suit and tie, driving a nice car, and the first thing I heard was, are you out on parole or probation? I was expecting him to ask me for my driver's license registration. Now, why am I not qualified to talk about that? Because I want that message to go to the other young black boys. There's a lot of black kids out of school right now, black and white, but white kids don't get hunted by law enforcement the way black kids do. Just you Google the criminal justice system and the Kerner Commission and watch documentary 13 if you don't know what I'm talking about. But when me as an intelligent man who's been trained by my parents how to not get shot, okay, when you're driving a car, to me that's more important than saying, hey, Big C, what do you think LeBron's going to score tonight? I don't know, but I tell you what, if he gets into the 40s, I think Cleveland has a chance if he gets his other players involved. That's not going to help a young black kid getting pulled over by law enforcement sometime this summer. So that's why I like Big C Sports, to reach out to young kids. We're going to tell you the score too. But I'd be another sycophant if I didn't tell you the reality that we learned from that museum. And when we ask you again, who are your monuments? Who are your national monuments? When I was asked, are you out on parole or probation, all I saw was his gun. And I just wanted to live. But my monuments were my parents who taught me how to behave when that happened. not getting on TV shucking and jiving about who's going to score how many points in the game. We can do that too, but why are we the only ones? Big C, I just think I appreciate you in the platform, that we bring up, because if we don't do it, I fear that a lot of people won't. I just want to say that sports is a billion-dollar industry, and boys and girls sports is the foundation to this billion-dollar industry. And for every athletic and sporting event, you need athletic and event insurance. We work with Ben and Mark. They've been around half a century. They work with Big C Sports. Whether you're a pro team, a collegiate team, a high school team, or your mom and pop soccer leagues, when you reach out to them, let them know that Big C sent you. 800-772-8624. That's 800-772-8624. So I know as we all get caught up in who's going to win a game, I mean, there's just too much that comes into my sphere of influence, and from parents that are saying, how are we going to help these young black boys? Because TV's made them believe they're going to be the next LeBron James. He might be a national monument for an athlete, and he does a lot of good things. I wish every athlete could be like him. But for the ones who have access to the airways, LeBron James doesn't. He only gets the interview. But for our media brethren, and since a lot of the black guys are afraid to ask them, I'm going to ask guys that run the major networks, can you at least spend a little bit of time talking about how to keep women safe and people of color safe? Because everybody's ancestry came from Africa. But if you don't know that, you're going to participate in that, tacitly consent to it. So when I get pulled over again, and I hope it doesn't happen to me or anyone I love, I don't want an officer to say, are you out on parole or probation? I've never been arrested. But I was just treated as another one of those guys. And as I do have a respect for people that will stand up and say that, because it's happening to somebody as we speak. And I know they want to watch the game, but that's when I ask, who are your national monuments? I want Big C Sports to be a national monument for young kids all over the universe that face real life, Big C. Not just, hey, can we see if the Dodgers are going to beat the Milwaukee Brewers? Or can we see if the Giants are going to beat the Diamondbacks? That's great. But does that make sense, Big C, why President Trump has such anathema that even myself, when I'm getting pulled over, I'm wondering, am I going to survive this? The answer is yes, I'm going to, because I've been trained how to do it, because I didn't grow up being a sick fence to who won the game. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Chuck, I'll go back to that analyst that you said he wasn't qualified.
He said he wasn't qualified.
That he said he was not qualified to speak on the incident, Charlton. But what makes him qualified to talk on television, period?
Yep.
If you say that you can only talk about one thing, if you've grown up your whole life as a minority, you're qualified to speak about any minority event, Charlton.
Yeah.
Because you live it. Your family has lived it. You have grown up as a young man listening to it, Charlton. If you're a man of 50 years of age, at least 45, you have grown up listening to this from your parents and your grandparents. They have explained it to you daily when you were a young male, what the do's and don'ts and the pitfalls are out there.
Yep.
What faces you as a minority in America. So to say you're not qualified is to say that your parents were stupid.
Yep.
Okay? That's basically what you're saying, is that your parents was too stupid to tell you about the pitfalls of life as a young minority growing up in America.
Yeah.
And that they never witnessed or lived through any of the indignities that minorities did during their era, Charlton. You sit there and lied to America.
Yeah.
You lied to your parents, saying that you were not qualified, that they were not open and educated enough to tell you what was wrong with our society as you were growing up.
Big C,
that is the
yeah.
total disrespect of a culture
yeah.
and your lineage. How could you stand in your dad's face and say, I'm unqualified because you were too ignorant to inform me?
Yeah.
That's a sellout, Charlton, a complete sellout.
And yep.
And you know who you are that we're talking about when you come on, because you pass it on to you say is a historian in the black culture. You are an individual as an African American in the culture in America. You are a historian.
Yeah.
You are part of living history of what has happened to your culture.
You know what?
So you cannot say that you do not know and that you're not qualified. It's like saying that an NFL player, an African-American NFL player, is unqualified to express himself.
Yep.
He is unqualified to understand what the First Amendment right is.
Yep.
He is unqualified to understand what we have in unequal justice in America.
Yep.
He is unqualified to
yeah.
tell you that there's social injustice in America. you are unqualified to even be a black man, if you could say that.
Well, and that's why, and I want young athletes and young entertainers, and black and white. I want you to listen to Big C Sports, and I want you to listen to these other networks. What they're doing right now is a smokescreen. They have all these erstwhile athletes. They bring former guys on, and some of them don't even know TV presence. They're standing in front of the camera and blocking the camera, not even looking at the camera. I mean, I'm not knocking it, but I don't like dumb people. This is what I want to bring up when we say, who's your national monument? And we're pining the loss of Dwight Clark. Dwight Clark, God bless his soul, but he never taught me how not to get shot when I get pulled over. My parents taught me that. And when I see one after the other being paraded across the TV screen, give me your thoughts on the game. Give me your thoughts on who's going to win. These men have an opportunity to stand up in front of the whole universe and at least make that part of their programming. How do we keep people from being preyed upon? What do you look out for? How do we keep girls safe when they go off to college and they're in a dorm? And that dorm has co-ed. And they don't know how to behave around certain men who are predators. So they get preyed upon. And they don't know to call 911. If you follow Big C Sports, you know call 911. I don't care. Call them because it's reported and the criminal doesn't want to get caught. But I got to finish up this point. When Trump said, fire those SOBs, he was talking about my mother. She taught me how to be safe in front of law enforcement and regular society. My father taught me that. My grandparents taught me that. So when he says fire those SOBs, even for the dumb black guys, he's talking about your parents and grandparents, the ones who went through Jim Crow, and he said they don't count. Wallace did the same thing. So for the men that want to go shake his hand and go back and tell your grandparents, I'm not qualified to talk about what can save the next young kid that might be dumb enough to listen to me, but you're going to pump his brain full of how you get bigger, stronger, and faster. Hey, what are the stats on LeBron James and Steph Curry? And what a waste of time if that's all you are as a man, and if that's your national monument, who won the game? That's why I'm so disappointed in dumb men. And I don't want to ever have a show like that where somebody stands up for one day and they're talking about the game again. They're not even talking about like it happened anymore, Big C, because, well, we just got to talk about the sport.
Charlton, I want to go back to that broadcaster who said he wasn't qualified. The same time last year, he was at the Oakland Coliseum or Oracle Arena, wasn't he?
Yeah.
During the NBA championship run.
Yep.
I believe it was game 2, trying to get into the arena.
Mm-hmm.
Coach Mike Brown was stopped by the police.
Yep.
And held, not allowed into the arena. They felt he was not qualified to be in the arena, that he was perpetrating a crime, yet he was the assistant head coach of the Golden State Warriors. Now, this same broadcaster talked with Mike Brown.
Yes.
Okay? But he would not put Mike Brown on camera to talk about his experience.
Nope.
We don't want to do that. We don't want to draw attention away from the game. That's his own personal demon he has to deal with, being held by guns by the police officer outside his place of work.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Being held at bay by guns outside his place of work.
Yeah.
They let it slide. And so this broadcaster who spoke with this coach had firsthand experience, not from past incidents, from a present, that day incident.
Yeah.
But to say that he's unqualified to understand, yet you're sitting there with a man trying to get to work, being held off by law enforcement, armed law enforcement with their guns drawn,
Yeah.
not allowing him to go to work. And yet you're saying you're unqualified to talk about it. You were unqualified to talk to the coach then.
And you know,
You're unqualified to talk about the game.
Yeah.
Because this was a life incident right when you're trying to go to work. So when you want to sit there and say that African Americans are wrong for taking a stance on social injustice when the national anthem is being played, he was trying to get to work where the national anthem is played.
Yeah.
And yet you put a gun in his face telling him no.
And see, the reason that I wanted to bring up today's show, who are your national monuments, is not these sycophants athletes that almost every show trots across the screen so you can hear their thoughts on the game. And if they have the eyes and ears of young minds, black and white. that will solve this problem that we just talked about down in Arizona, and that happened to me recently. And there was 3 police cars that pulled up around me for 15 minutes. My registration was current. I had no criminal background. Everything was good. 15 minutes, 3 squad cars. Why? And I'm telling the young black kids that, listen, who's your national monument? Big C Sports is. You know why? Because we're not going to pump you full of garbage. Hey, you think this guy's going to score 20 points on that? How many assists do you think he's going to get? I know there's some young black kids going through hell as they get ready to watch the game. And if the game is your relief, I still want to make life safe for all people. To mainstream, maybe talk to some of your parents in law enforcement about, you know what, mom and dad, that's not right to have that mentality against people. We're all the same. If we can get young people taking that back to their parents because they're the same color, maybe it will go further. I know there's not a black courage, that the lack of black courage that will even go to the white producers and say this is important to us. And don't think it's about just black. Big C Sports has advocated for women more than any sports show in the history of the universe. You can Google that. Every show we say no tolerance for it. So as we talk a little bit about this game tonight, I want young people to know, don't be a sycophant to these athletes on TV. Unless they're telling authority that can put out a PSA on let's bring attention to this ending domestic violence and ending this police brutality, it's not going to happen with just Big C Sports. Who cares who won the game if you're being handcuffed just for being black? That's happened too much in this country. And when our own POTUS will grandstand and act as if the museum doesn't exist, that museum's there for all people, not just black Americans. That's why it's so important to me, Big C.
You have to be a person to want to go there.
Yeah, that's true. So I hope that for the young people that are facing whatever they're going to face when they get pulled over this summer, I hope that you memorize what we just told you. Be calm, be respectful. You can also call 911 on your own phone for those law enforcement agents that turn off their cameras so they can't see what's going to happen to you when it's on report at 911. Then they're not going to do something stupid because they're being alerted also that my office knows what I'm doing. Oops, I forgot to turn my camera on. That's happened too many times. Big C, that make any sense? And I'll get your thoughts on the game tonight.
Well, Charlton, that you always have to understand. Law enforcement is supposed to have their body cam on at all times.
Supposedly.
Supposed to have the dash cam on at all times. There's a reason why that cam goes off, whether it's the body camera or the dash camera. They're about to commit a crime. They don't turn it off accidentally.
Nope.
They turn it off because they're covering up a conspiracy. An honest officer will let it run because they want you to see that they're doing their job properly. They have nothing to hide.
That's right.
They want the audio and visual on. That's what it was for, to exonerate police officers.
Yep.
To show that they're doing their job properly. But when you say, I go back to the incident in Sacramento during the summer when that young man was shot in his grandparents' backyard.
Yeah.
And the words you heard resonating from the lead officer, turn off the audio.
Yeah.
Turn it off. We have to get our story straight. So you think about that. Right there, he's telling you, we're about to commit a cover-up. We have to get our story straight, and we can't have you hear what we're saying to each other.
Yeah.
Why is that? Why was that so important? And people say, well, they were doing their job. No, they weren't. You have to be open. You have to have transparency.
Yep.
And if you're not willing to have that, then you're committing a cover-up.
Yeah.
Our country is running under that right now.
Yeah.
Where there's this cover-up going on.
Well,
and you're doing everything to deflect from it.
Well, Big C,
and that's what happened in that incident, Charlton.
Yeah.
Turn off the audio so we can get our story straight.
Yep.
And then the incident in Arizona, Charlton, they're saying, well, there's no audio, so you don't know what he was saying to us.
Yep.
Well, we see him talking on the phone with his back against the wall, not in a threatening posture, hand not in his pocket, just leaning against the wall, one arm against the wall, one arm up on his phone. And you guys start punching on him.
Yeah.
So I don't know at what point was he threatening.
No.
That was part of the report, that he was threatening the officers.
What?
So I guess holding the phone is a threatening posture because It got him beat up in Arizona and got the young man in Sacramento killed.
Well, I'm telling you, and it's so important to me, and I wish we had a few more brave people that would at least talk to their program director about why it's so important, because it happened to me. I'm not reading something that happened back in the 50s. I'm talking about real life situations, surrounded by 3 squad cars, and I did nothing wrong other than driving while black. But I was raised how to not be dumb and to be calm. But I also have my lawyer on the phone, on speakerphone. I'm just saying that message is more important than who won the game. Speaking of that, Big C, what's your favorite milkshake? I think mine is Vibranium Chocolate Crunch, Big C. I know your restaurant served the milkshake. Do you like it vanilla? You like it chocolate or Vibranium? Which one is your favorite milkshake, Big C? Your thoughts?
Charlton, is nothing better than a rich, thick chocolate milkshake. And I'm talking about when you suck it on the straw wants to collapse because it's so thick.
Yeah.
You know, and you make it with real ice cream.
Yeah.
Not ice milk, not this stuff that's fluffed.
Yes.
You want some gelato, making it, Charlton. It's just, decadent.
I tell you, mine's Vibranium Chocolate Crunch is amazing. So I want to get your thoughts real quick. This game tonight, Cleveland and Golden State. And I know that tonight has to be a night that Cleveland wins. If not, they'll probably just kind of lay down in Game 4. It's human nature. When I watch so much MMA fighting and being around so many fighters, there's a time when guys tap out. They tap out before they get choked out or when they don't know where they are. They just start tapping, okay? If Cleveland doesn't win tonight, I think they'll tap out Game 4. You'll see them play their best basketball, but I think we need to pay attention to how the game is called by the officiating crew. Big C, your thoughts?
Charlton, I think that'll be the most poignant point of tonight. You have to understand the officials that are not working this game, Charlton, will be tweeting live.
Really?
And so they will be critiquing the officials that are in the game. Now, this is going to lead to an excessive amount of fouls called tonight, Charlton. The big question will be, how frequently will LeBron James go to the line? I got the over and under at 12. Okay?
Yeah.
That's what I have. I got the over and under at 12 free throw attempts by LeBron James.
Yeah.
So that means that the tweeter fingers will be working. Now, the NBA has also brought in Steve Javie throughout the games, Charlton, the lead officials, to ask him what did he see.
Yeah.
And he's been political about his analysis of what he's seen on the court, Charlton. But how are these officials during the game going to be affected by their brethren tweeting live tonight, Charlton? Did they make a mistake? Did they miss a call? Did they show favoritism?
Yeah.
These are the things, this is the human factor going to take play tonight, Charlton, from the guys on the court. This is a game that, LeBron is going to come out with a lot of vigor playing hard.
Yeah.
It's what the rest of the guys are going to do on the team, Charlton. That is the key. Tyronn Lue is looking at, juggling the lineup tonight, starting the game.
Yep.
Trying to get a little punch coming off the bench instead of waiting on the 6th or 7th man in the game, Charlton. He's going to start him tonight. Hood is going to start. So you're hoping to apply some pressure like McGee did in that last game for Golden State in the middle.
Yeah.
To give them some spark. So Tyronn Lue is the man on the hot seat, Charlton. He's a coach that will be maligned regardless of what happens tonight.
Yes.
Whether he did too much or did too little. It's about the players responding.
Yes.
When you look at this Cavaliers organization, everybody points a finger at Tyronn Lue. What did Dan Gilbert do prior to the season start? He fired the general manager.
He sure did.
So this was a team without a stern. You think about it, you're on a ship. If you don't have a stern, you can't steer straight. Okay? That's what his team was. He signed a bunch of guys who were on their last leg, literally.
Yeah.
Traded 5 of them and cut them, Charlton, before the halfway point in the season. Brings in 3 players off of losing teams.
Yeah.
So I don't know why they think that Tyronn Lue all of a sudden was supposed to be this magician when the guy, as Bill Parcells say, at least let me buy some of the groceries if I'm going to cook.
Yeah.
They didn't let Tyronn Lue buy any of the groceries he had in Cleveland.
No.
But they told him, you have to make a gourmet meal.
Yeah.
And he's getting all this lambasting from the mainstream media.
Yeah.
He's not doing the job that he doesn't have the control of the team.
Yeah.
So, you got to look at it from that perspective, Charlton. He hasn't had any help from the ownership. Got the most dominant player in the game.
Yep.
who at times his ego is bigger than he is.
Yeah.
And you can see that through his actions. I mean, James, you respect that. All great athletes have to have an ego.
Oh, yeah.
And they want to be aggressive at all times, mentally and physically.
The biggest lion on
That's
the court.
what it takes to win, Charlton. That's that lion mentality you talk about.
Yeah.
And he has it all the time.
Yeah.
It's just that I don't know if the media ever thought about this, Charlton. If one of his teammates shot the ball as many times as he does, how would they be looked at?
Yeah.
Would they be looked at as a non-team player, being selfish? They're taking the ball out of LeBron's hand, being selfish, trying to win the game themselves, taking the onuses on their back. They're NBA players, Charlton.
Yes.
They're paid to play the game, as Herm Edwards would say. You're paid to play the game.
That's very true.
They're out there to win.
Yes. I tell
They
you.
may watch LeBron do a lot,
Yes.
but they're NBA caliber, Charlton. They have the ability to score and pass just like LeBron. They just don't get the opportunities.
That's a very good point, Big C. And I know, in the sports universe, we can all exhale. And I know because when I hear about things that happen in society, I know a lot of young people might look up to us, whether we know they're looking or not. And I think it's our responsibility to do what the black church has always done to young black people. Number one, they said, trust in God, but also how to behave when you're being preyed upon. It's so important. That's more important than seeing some guy that scored a basket 20 years ago telling me what he thinks is going to happen in the finals. And I would hope that they could use some of their time to say to their program directors, this is also important, okay? It's important to my heart, and that way it will always be important to my heart. Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Bundini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young men, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, it's getting interesting in the game of golf. We've talked about how boring it is without Tiger being around.
Yes.
The European Tour this weekend is putting in a shot clock.
Really?
That if you don't shoot the ball within a certain amount of regulated time, it's going to cost you a stroke. Think about what effect that would have on golf if they put that on the PGA Tour with the numbers already lagging. But did the president say that the numbers are down because the black guy wasn't playing?
No.
Damn, I missed that.
I told you can Google. That's a good knowledge. He never said golf numbers were down because the black guy's not out there. That's funny, Big C. I want to say the numbers are up every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never, ever any excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage all on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.